Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. It is Friday. Finally, so congrats to you for making it through the week. I know for me, the week has been okay. It's been a little, sometimes productive. Sometimes I really just would lay on the couch. What's up, Jill? Thank you for joining. So good to see you. Yeah, so we are here with another episode of In Conversation, still HBCU Homecoming Season Series. As you can see, I have my Howard hoodie in the back. What's up, Barb? Thank you for joining. Also, because it's Friday, you know, it's a little bit like a dress down Friday, if you will. So, hey, Bruce Glenn. I'm rocking this hoodie, but it's not just any hoodie. It also actually has a lot to do with my guest today. I'm very excited to have her. She's amazing. She is an attorney. She is a social worker. She currently works for the African American Policy Forum. She also happens to be my line sister, Shermena Nelson. So I'm really excited to have her today. We're going to be talking a lot of different things that are going on in society. Super important Say Her Name campaign, which the African American Policy Forum is a huge part of. If you've seen my post this week, you saw that I posted a special Say Her Name zine that was put out last month with the African American Policy Forum in combination with Gucci's Chime for Change organization, really just wanting to build awareness of all that's going on. So let's see, hopefully, I think Shermina's here, so we'll tag her in real quick. Hey Shermena, let me grab you and pull you in. Okay. So yeah, it's Friday and it's, been a week, but we made it. So congrats to y'all. Congrats to me. Hopefully you can relax this weekend. That's the plan here. It's like weird there. Hey Mina, what's up?
Hey, I was trying, I'm not tech savvy, so I had it set up so perfect, and then I realized I had to turn my iPad the other way, so this is not as cool. You can't see my cool Howard.
You can stand up real quick. Let's just show them just for a moment.
Show my Howard, my HU sweatshirt here.
Hey,
I wonder if I can push this thing back though, so probably not.
Right.
I have it kind of leaning on something.
Net Lifestyle, my Dior. Thank y'all for joining. We have some line sisters here, Mina. I saw Jill and Barb so far. So thank you guys. Look, my glasses are steaming up because it's like hot in my apartment, but okay. Hopefully that'll be okay. So how are you today?
You want the truth?
Yeah.
I am tired, but good. I won't complain. I definitely won't sort of glorify the whole, I'm out here grinding. I never sleep. It's cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's real. Well, I thought we would start with a little game. I didn't tell you. Excited. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with St. Kitts, but it's a new sort of event in a box set. Probably not describing it right, but they had homecoming sets where you could order it, and they kind of brought you homecoming in a box. So there was a cocktail, a recipe. There were some homecoming candles from Ivy and Allen ago. But among that, there were these Howard homecoming conversation cards. I got the Howard version, obviously, because I went to Howard. So I pulled a few of these cards. I pulled 5 of them, which I think are interesting topics. So do you want to just tell me which card, or do you want me to pick? I want the middle card, the third card. Yeah.
Okay. It says, what's your absolute worst homecoming memory?
My worst homecoming memory?
That's how we're starting. We're starting with the worst.
I think I have one too. So I want to say sophomore year or so. So every homecoming, all of my friends from New York would come, and everyone was at their, different colleges and such. So we were coming back from, who knows what it was. Could have been Love Dream, H2O. I don't know.
Yes.
And yeah, my best friend was driving the car. She's not from DC and she didn't go to Howard. Okay. And there was this guy, I guess he thought it was his car. He mixed it up and he was coming towards the car to get in. And I was like, lock the doors. And everyone's like, huh? What? Huh? What's your...
And this dude actually got in the car.
What?
Yeah, he got in the car, but he was just as frightened as us. It just was that feel. It was still just a really scary experience. But honestly, when he got in and he looked at me like, "Who the hell are you?"
Like, who's?
And I'm looking at him terrified because I'm thinking it was sort of on purpose. I realize now, looking back, he thought it was, he thought it was someone picking him up. There was no Uber back then, so I don't know. Oh. Maybe he just wasn't used to whoever's car he thought was picking him up. But yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's a good one. Okay.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. It's still, we laugh at it now, but that wasn't really funny.
Oh man, it's scary, especially if it's like late night and you anywhere in DC. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we'll counter that. I'll pick the next one, which is, what's your absolute favorite homecoming memory?
Oh, so I have two favorite homecomings, and ironically, I guess they are 10 years apart. So 2006 homecoming, that was my first homecoming as an alum, and as someone, who crossed as a senior, it was my first time getting to really be, Delta on campus and sing. I'd sung on the yard before, but homecoming is different. Right. So I would say that was one of my favorite, being at the step show as an actual Delta and being able to hang and be cool. Yeah. And then 2016, ironically, was the homecoming after my mom passed away. But it's still one of my favorites because it had that feeling of having a home to go to, and I felt really just surrounded by love. It's like coming home after going through something extremely tragic, and had line sisters, and it was our anniversary, so that was dope. And my brother was with me, and all my brother's friends, and so yeah, and it's funny, those are both 10 years apart, and I guess they both have that same theme of sort of coming back home after being, away.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I agree. Those are my best. Okay, one more, and then we'll get started with conversations. One more.
I'm gonna always go for the middle. So pick the middle one again.
The middle. All right, it's a challenge. How many famous alumni can you name?
Oh, I don't like this. This is a haze. This is not a challenge. This is a haze. Who made these cards?
You want to do a different one?
I'll tell you my faves.
Yes.
Debbie Allen, Felicia Rashad, Chadwick. Yeah, those are some of my faves. I guess Lance's celebrity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some of my fave Howard people.
Good. Okay. Those are some good ones. There's so many good ones that I'm just saying. I'm a little biased, but there's just so many. So how was what made you choose Howard when you decided to go?
I thought about that question a bit today. Because I don't think my story, I don't have the story where I always wanted to go to Howard. I actually was trying to do the exact opposite. Mostly because, my brother went to Howard. So I was under this thing where it's like, carve out my own path. I want to do my own thing. I don't want to follow. And then I had gone up there and I was like, eh. And I had in my mind that I was going to go to LA and attend USC. I had never been to LA. Didn't have any friends from LA, but from early on, I had decided that I was going to go to USC or UCLA, and that was it. And when it came close to me going to school, but other than those schools, I applied to all HBCUs. So it was like, okay, these two or all of these HBCUs. And we did our tours of the schools, and my mom was really big on Hampton. My mom is from Virginia, and she loved it. She said, "This is structure. See this, how they do this, and they have curfew." And I was like, "No, I'm no curfew." And we decided I couldn't go to California. I was having some health issues, and I couldn't be that far away from home. So we decided to check out those HBCUs. But we went to Hampton, we went to Howard, we went to Morgan State, we went to Virginia State. And actually, we did not go to Howard. We went all of those places. And then my brother said, "Can we just stop by Howard, see?" And it's almost like he set me up because it's like they roll out the red carpet. So we got on campus and he had his friend ready to show me, and she showed me the annex. Okay, showed me all the things that they knew I would want. I want my own. I'm not gonna want to share the bathroom with this many people and things like that. So I was like, this might work. And it was really like, I was like, okay, I can do this. I had people here. Then I found out I had a cousin. My cousin Angel worked in residence life, and I was like, yeah, this will work. And that this will work was the best decision I've ever made probably in my life. So I'm glad he talked me into at least swinging by Howard on our way home from, I don't know, from Hampton or wherever we were.
That's so awesome. It's funny you say that. Hey, to everyone joining. I saw Derek. I saw Miss Julie. And people just keep coming. But we appreciate you being here. Suli just joined. But it's funny you say that because I went on a Black college tour. I was coming from, it was like in Detroit over spring break. We went to a bunch of the schools on the East Coast, a little bit in the South. But when we got to Howard, they hadn't actually planned an official tour.
Yeah.
So we ended up going on campus, sitting at the flagpole, and someone like who knew a relative or something like pointed out the buildings around the yard. Like it was about Howard, like at all.
That was your tour?
That was the tour. I mean, we might have walked past a few things, but we didn't go in it. But somehow like ended up there. And I agree. Still think it's like one of the best decisions that I've ever made. So I feel you on that.
That is funny. That sounds real. How I mean, you know, but I used to see people giving full tours, so that is funny.
Yeah.
That they were kind of like, this could be where you go to class.
Yeah, there's
the chapel down there.
a lot of people study in the undergraduate library, which I don't think exists anymore, but Club UGL.
I think they're doing it over. I saw a post that it's being remodeled, and I kind of couldn't. I was, you know, I felt like I was either being a hater or just I like the old. I was like, it's just too fancy to be UGL. Like, what is this? But yeah, they have the whole remodel plan.
Yes. So how do you think attending Howard impacted your, I guess, career trajectory or journey beyond that?
I think in a lot of ways, I think a lot of who I am is because I went to Howard. When I speak to friends who went to predominantly white institutions and their experiences are so different than mine, I would say I grew up around people who are pretty, you know, militant and social justice centered, but going to Howard gave me a lot of that foundation. Dr. Carr's class, you know, and then having all my classes Dr. Carr. And then I switched my minor to Afro-American Studies, which I don't know if I would have done if I was at USC or UCLA. And that's no knock to those schools. But Howard gave me such a strong foundation. And then Howard has that feeling of family. I can't speak for other schools because I only went to Howard for undergrad. I can speak about my experience when I was at NYU and just the difference between the two. But yeah, it has that feeling of home, and it instills these really strong values in you. And yeah, I don't know who I would be if I didn't go to Howard. So it's kind of hard to answer, but I know that a lot of what I do is based on those early things that I learned. And also I'm able to reach back to those connections because of that family feel. The fact that I'm sitting here talking to you, or I can call, you know, when I need things done, it's like almost I put out a bat signal and I have hundreds of people from Howard, even if I didn't know them at Howard, who are willing to help. And I don't know if that exists in other spaces, but I know it exists with Howard.
Yeah. I agree. So you said you grew up a little bit with a lot of, you know, kind of social justice around as you were growing up. Can you talk about sort of where you're from and sort of all the way up to where you are now? So where you grew up, that whole journey.
I'm from Queens, New York, Hollis, Queens, New York, to be specific. The home of Run DMC and LL Cool J and the Fat Boys, if you're really a rap hip hop person. And my father is Cuban. He's from Havana, Cuba. And my mother is from South Hill, Virginia. And so when I was growing up, I always thought early on, so here's a fun fact. You'll see how many people are in here right now before I tell this. I always thought I would be a singer. I wanted to sing. I was quite a different person growing up than I probably am now. I was really loud. I would get in trouble for, talking too much in class. I was that person, but always wanted to perform, always wanted to be in front of the spotlight. Took a lot of vocal lessons and acting classes and things like that. But a lot of my family members always said, you can be a singer, but you're also going to be a lawyer, because I talked so much. And that kind of stuck with me, even though I don't think I had this real interest in law. I think it was sort of put on me. And just, that was sort of my upbringing. I was the go-to person in the family, the one who get things done, the one who, I'll stand up for the big kids if I have to, telling people off and things like that. And I guess to get me to this point, wow. Let's see, in junior high-ish, I lost my closest aunt, who used to be a performer. She used to sing, so she was sort of my inspiration, my mentor, and I decided I didn't want to sing anymore. And from that, I had to figure out what I was going to do. I was already accepted at Bayside High School Academy of Music, and I see my friend Mia is actually in here, and she went to Bayside Academy of Music as well, and Howard. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. I was also accepted to LaGuardia, which is all music. So I decided I'll go to Bayside because I'll have a couple of music classes, but I can sort of try to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, because I knew I didn't want to sing anymore, which is tragic when I look back on it. But so I went to Bayside and met a lot of great, amazing people, and was in the vocal program, but obviously paying attention to other things to figure out what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And then decided, okay, I want to I either want to go into veterinary studies because I love animals, or I'll be a lawyer, right? So when I started Howard, I was undecided. And let's see, someone decided for me that political science is the way to go. I've always had an interest in politics, probably not as heavy as some of my other colleagues in the program, mm-hmm. but it seemed ideal, seemed like something I would be interested in. So I was a poli-sci major and Afro-American studies minor. And what happens after poli-sci, right? Half of the class was going to law school. This is terrible. This really sounds, but it worked out in the end. We'll get there. So, I decided, well, I was always told I was going to be an attorney. I was going to be a lawyer. I'm going to go to law school. And I decided that probably around junior year. And somewhere in that prep, I started really thinking and saying, I actually kind of want to be a social worker. Mm-hmm. And then I said, I would love to have my own nonprofit, right? So I started thinking about these things.
Was this in law school that you were thinking?
No, I was still at Howard. So I started looking into dual degrees for law and social work. Mm-hmm. And then I spoke to some people. I'm a first generation graduate, my brother and I. And there's not a lot of other people in our family who graduated from college, and let alone law school. So I didn't really have anyone to speak to about what to do next, right? And what you can do with your law degree. Should you even be going to law school? What else you could do? But I did speak to someone who told me that it would be very hard for me to be a dual degree student. Also, some of the best advice I was given. So I decided to just go to law school. And so I went to Barry University first, which was not a great experience. And I transferred to UDC. I was not enjoying law school. I don't know who does, but I just felt like I wasn't necessarily in the right place. But when I got to UDC, it worked more for me because UDC's law program, and I used to work for admissions for UDC, so I won't go through the spill, but it's very clinic based. Different from other law schools, clinics are required at UDC, whereas at many law schools, clinics are privileged. And so a legal clinic is where you get to practice law as a student.
Oh, okay.
With supervision. And for someone like me who was trying to figure out what I was going to do with this law degree, knowing that I really had this passion for social justice and nonprofit work, this seemed like the best fit for me, because this is a way I can actually still work with the people. I can learn while I'm actually doing the work. And I'm glad I made that change, because I'm not sure I would have finished law school if I didn't transfer to UDC. I enjoyed my clinic experience, and then, you know, we were really close. We had a group of friends that I'm still really close to this day. And yeah, so I finished law school, and then I stayed because I was working for admissions with the law school, and I decided, maybe I'll work in admissions. So I worked for admissions while I was in law school, and a couple years following. And still, as much as I enjoyed it, and I wouldn't take that experience back either, because I was able to advocate for a lot of people who I think might have been overlooked in their applications, exceptional people who are exceptional attorneys and lawyers today, better than I am, probably, likely. So really glad I was in there, able to do that. But I just still felt like something was sort of tugging, and I left and came back. I left DC and came back to New York to figure it out. And I decided that I would go back to school for social work.
Mm-hmm.
And that obviously was a game changer for me. It was my social work school experience at NYU was one of the few times in my education that I really felt like I had found home. Different from the home I spoke about with Howard, but home in a career sense. Like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I decided I wanted to do study grief, trauma, and loss, mostly because of the things that happened with me with surrounding my aunt's passing and other family members that I lost. I lost a lot of my prime core family by the time I was in school for social work. So I decided I would study grief, trauma, and loss and help others. And I then started working for the Salvation Army. I was actually an intern for them at one of their shelters, and was pulled after Hurricane Sandy to help out. And that turned into a full-time role managing an entire office in Far Rockaway. So I was the director of the Hurricane Sandy recovery program for Far Rockaway for the Salvation Army. And when that program closed out, I then went back to DC, actually, and worked for DC Rape Crisis Center, and as a policy associate, and then director of advocacy there. And unfortunately, they had some budget cuts, and so we're going to get into hardship for those of you who need a little bit of a testimony today.
All the time.
Yes, so that was end of October. So I took a new job and moved back to DC and was so excited, and everything was going well. And then I was laid off in October with severance. They were beautiful people, so close with them, a lot of them to this day. Just didn't work out. And then I, after that, just trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do, right? So I started doing contract work for some law firms, had my crew, my army looking for work for me, and I was doing some just event planning in that time. And then I had a really heavy loss in January, so October. And in January, I lost a really close friend, and it just was broken. And I remember I spoke to my mom on the phone one day, and she said, "What's going on with you?" And I said, "I'm just not happy." And she said, "I'll call you back." That's okay. She just hung up on me. I was like, what? And when she called back, she was on the bus heading to DC. And this was like mid-January. And she showed up at my apartment, and she said, "What do you need to get you happy?"
Did you start crying when she showed up at your apartment?
I didn't. I cry now when I think about it. You know, sometimes you take things for granted at those moments. But I was broken. I felt like lost this wonderful job, and then had what someone would equate, to, I guess, a breakup or just a loss of someone really close to me, and wasn't sure, okay, what happens now? And I had done a vision board that year, though, or the year prior, because I thought things were going to go really well. And my mom, she's like taking the vision board, like, "Well, what about this?" I'm like, "Doesn't matter. Nothing works. Everything messes up." Blah, 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 going through this whole And like she just couldn't get through to me. And then so she left. When she had to leave, she subbed in my other friend, my best friend, Tasha. She subbed her in. And Tasha shows up at the door. I'm like, what is happening? This is like the biggest intervention ever. And she sits with me, but she didn't have much to say, but she just sat with me for a while. It's just really, I mean, I was really hurt and not sure what was next. And still sort of just trying to figure it out. I just kept contracting. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Had some friends who were looking for work for me. B Mac was helping me, Danielle. And things were looking up. I had an interview with the Obama administration, and I subbed a picture. I put my suit on. I took a picture from my mom. And, you know, I was told that I could come back for a second interview. And I got a call one day. I was at my desk, and my mom said, you know, she had come back to DC. So by this time it's about April for a family member's birthday party, and she went back. But when she was there, she said she wasn't feeling well. She had this stomach ache. So here I am, probably a week away from my next interview. Money is coming in. It's not necessarily what I want to do, but I'm good. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to survive. And I get this call, and my mom says, you know, I went to the doctor like you told me, and now I'm in the hospital. I said, okay. So I leave work, and I said, I'm going to go check on my mom. I'll be back tomorrow because it's contract work. You can do that.
Right.
And basically, I never came back. As you know, my mom got really sick, and 5 weeks later, she was gone.
So sorry still.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not sure I ever have told this story definitely to the public on an Instagram Live, but since we're giving testimonies, and then I definitely was like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
Apparently someone wants to take me out. And I remember leaving the hospital room with her body there thinking, yeah, this is over for me. Like, this is the end for me. I don't know what else to do. Because when I was in that dark place before, she hops on the bus, right? So now it's like, what happens now? Was very alone, felt like nothing really mattered. Nothing I had ever accomplished mattered. And yeah, but I had to work because we have to work, we have to survive. And so I was contracting for a while. And one day, I don't even know if it was a dream or what, something came to me and it's like, okay, it's enough of this. Like, yes, you say I'll never be, you know, necessarily who I was before, and I'm not sure I want to be. That experience has changed me greatly. But I felt like you can't let this all be in vain. You can't let that bus trip be in vain. Mm-hmm. You can't let, you know, all of the sacrifices that were made to put you through school. It just can't all be in vain. So what are you going to do? Right. So I decided to start applying for work. And once again, Danielle was sending me jobs. And I saw the job. I remembered the African American Policy Forum. I had joined their mailing list when I was at DC Rape Crisis Center. So once again, testimony, right? So I knew of them because of DC Rape Crisis Center, the place I got laid off from, right? But without DC Rape Crisis Center, I would not have been aware of African American Policy Forum. And so I decided I was going to apply, and I applied for a role, and I had this interview, and I'm like, I don't know if, you know, I'm quite qualified. I've been kind of out the nonprofit game for a while. And when I got, you know, I was going back and forth about even explaining why my resume sort of looked this way. And when I got in there, I told my story.
Yeah.
Told about my mother, told about, you know, sort of this journey, not quite how I just told it to you, but, and it resonated with someone in there.
Yeah.
That was in November, and it took a while, but maybe 4, 5, 6 months later, I was offered the role of Chief of Staff for the African American Policy Forum. And still, it allows me to still deal in sort of that sector of grief, trauma, and loss. But in a way that's a bit different than me doing, maybe one-on-one counseling or things of that nature, which I may do down the road. But it definitely allows me to tap into those stories. And I think I have a viewpoint that allows me to do my job, because I don't understand that type of loss, but I definitely understand that gut-wrenching, life is not going to go on pain, that visceral, physical pain.
Wealth, Love, Beauty said grief into action. I just want to, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but thank you for your testimony. Like, people are seriously resonating. Let's see. Nikki Amar said, I've never heard the full story. Woo, tearing up. Candy So Dandy.
Oh, don't tear up.
Oh, love you from Tia, from Mia, from Candy. Like,
Friends?
so I this, but like, thank you. Because I think, just sharing your testimony, and similar to how, it kind of turned into, it sort of perked someone's ears up in that interview. Like, there's so much power and just authenticity in your story. So thank you. I know I interrupted you, but thank you.
Yeah, no, there's power in it. And I'm not saying, some people say you have to be strong, whatever that looks like when someone is tragically, ripped from you.
Right.
But there is power in getting up, and there's power in choosing to live, more than just surviving, which is what I was doing for a really long time. Yeah, there's something to that.
Yes, that's so true. Man, power to live instead of just survive. That's so true. So, right, you work with AAPF. I know one of their main campaigns and initiatives is #SayHerName. So can you talk about that, how it came about? And I'm sure everyone at this point has seen the hashtags, but I don't know how people know the backstory. I would love for you to share that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say I probably knew the hashtag before I knew of AAPF. It's quite possible. So the Say Her Name campaign started in 2014 as a response to the killing of Black women at the hands of the police, what we call state-sanctioned police violence. And originally, so our executive director, who I absolutely love, Kimberly Crenshaw, who is a phenomenal scholar, coined the term intersectionality, is a critical race theory scholar. She found out about this story about Michelle Clouseau, who was a Black woman who was killed as a result of a mental health call. So just imagine that, right? The police are called to actually help you in a mental health crisis, and it results in you being killed. Wow. And her mother decided that someone was going to hear her daughter's story. Mm-hmm. And she marched her daughter's casket down to Arizona City Hall and demanded that they lift up this story. And Kimberly Crenshaw found out about this and decided that AAPF should be doing something. AAPF, so they started researching more and looking into these women who were killed by the police. And then there was a march following the deaths of the killings, to be clear, of Eric Garner. Yes, they decided they would go to the march, and they would have this sign with different women, victims who were killed by the police. And at the march, they were saying the different names of the people who were killed, but no names of women were being said. So they started to sort of point to the sign and chant, "Say her name." And it's just that organic. Yeah. And from that, Say Her Name was born, decided to make it a hashtag, and it's been moving ever since. I think the misconception with Say Her Name is that it's just this sort of hashtag. Mm-hmm. And it's not. It's a full campaign. It's a multi-dimensional campaign to address the multi-dimensional effects of women being killed by the police. There's a lot. There's advocacy, there's policy work, and there are actual, there, as I know, and our mothers know, that there's a cost to grief. Grief has a cost. And it's a cost that's more than just funeral expenses and those things, which, by the way, are very expensive. So quick point to everyone, please have a will and please have life insurance. But, you know, when your loved one is killed, you know, we have girls and women killed as early as, you know, 7 years old, ranging to 93 years old. You're not, you know, you likely do not have a life insurance policy for your 7-year-old, right? Or even your 20-year-old, you're not expecting for their life to be tragically taken. So there's a cost to that. One of our mothers actually was given the bill for the car in which her daughter was killed in. Which is, yeah, just the destroying the need to, I guess, to destroy the car, put it away. She received that bill. So yeah, there are those costs, but there are other costs that I think people don't consider. The loss of family, the socioeconomical cost of losing a family member, what that does to the structure of the family, particularly in Black families where we're already highly marginalized, and usually trying to make ends meet, make it from, you know, day to day. A lot of us live paycheck to paycheck. So what does that look like if you are all living paycheck to paycheck and one of the heads of households dies? Right. And in this case, are killed, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a cost to that too. So we make a point to try to address all of those costs in the best way we can. So we have actual direct funds that go, you know, to our mothers to help them with certain things, ranging, you know, from housing, food, clothes. And then we also had the advocacy component where we're, you know, obviously uplifting these names in different ways by programming, by drafting policy reform. Yeah, so it's just a host of things, but it's a huge program. It's not just, you know, the sort of posting the hashtag with the name, which I do not discourage. That is absolutely the first step, right? Because if we don't know these names, then we don't even know that this is a real problem. So we're not even thinking about how to address it. But right. It has to go obviously further than that for us to really make some real change.
Yeah. And so I know also one component isn't, I don't want to call the name of it wrong, but there's a special like community for the mothers, like that community.
Yeah, so that's the mother. So yeah, we have the Mothers Network, and that allows them, you know, to turn their grief into advocacy, and I obviously relate to that. So what they're doing is trying to make sure that this doesn't happen to someone else. So our Mothers Network, they meet. They do speaking engagements, and they also visit those who unfortunately enter what they call their sisterhood of sorrow, because the names, they increase, unfortunately. I think for many of us, Breonna Taylor was the first name that people were really familiar with, and maybe prior to that, Sandra Bland. And maybe a name or two here or there, but AAPF's database has more than 200 names. Wow. And those are just the names that have been reported to us. So yeah, and I think us also, we approach it a lot as a one-off or isolated event. Mm-hmm. So a lot of what we're always asking for is arrest the cops who killed, you know, I won't put a name in, but arrest the cops. That's usually our goal. And that honestly removes the fact that this is actually a systemic problem. Yeah. So just arresting those cops will not stop the next person from being killed. Hopefully it will be a deterrent, right? Because you will know as a police officer that you could actually be arrested and put in prison. So it does matter. I want to be clear that we obviously do need to arrest police officers, because for everyone else in this country, if you murder, you go to prison. Right. But we also need to really look into more of the systemic issues that cause this, because if we, you know, only arrest police officers that are associated with one killing, then we're not necessarily addressing all of the other killings and the policy issues surrounding that.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Just a great question. How can we help, not just by hashtags, but to do more work?
Oh yeah. I mean, so I would say, obviously it is important to know the name. So I would start with research. You can go to APS website, or you can ask me, Mia, because you're my friend, and to learn more about these stories, so that you're uplifting these stories in your circles and you're informed when you're doing so. And then the next steps would be to learn about the policy reforms that are happening in your state, and to get involved in that way. You can also get involved by, you know, reaching out to APF, attending our events. You can learn more about the mothers from our events and what their individual needs are, because some of, you know, everything that's on the policy list or the decisions that have been made for the Say Her Name campaign as a whole don't necessarily speak to the intricacies of each mother and what it is that they may need help or assistance with. So that would be my first steps.
Awesome. Because I was going to ask that. So thank you for asking that, Mia. So one of the initiatives with Say Her Name was the zine that recently, which was Time for Change. Can you talk about that a little bit? How it came about?
Time for Change zine. Yeah. So Nyki, you're part of the Time for Change zine.
We're excited.
That was so that came about in a very interesting way. So Gucci Time for Change. So Time for Change is the nonprofit spinoff, if that's the word I should use, for Gucci. Like and they do a lot of the real good. Yeah, it was funny because you said, is this Gucci?
Yes.
Yes, this is really Gucci. Yeah, and it's pretty cool too, because some of their advisors and their founders include, you know, Beyonce and Salma Hayek. Yeah. It's a pretty big deal. You're a big deal, Nyki. You're in the Time for Change zine. Yeah, they reached out because they wanted their zine, their third edition of the zine, to be very social justice centered, which many of theirs are, but they wanted it to be about Black Lives Matter and more about the killings that have been happening and some of the other things we've been elevating with Black Lives Matter. And you know, they wanted, you know, Kim as the guest editor. Obviously, I would want Kim as the guest editor as well. And so we had this meeting to kind of throw out some brainstorming ideas. And I asked them, would they be open to a complete Say Her Name zine? And it was what I saw at the time as a wild request. Because I thought, okay, they'll let it, you know, a portion of it be Say Her Name and then some other things. And they said yes. They said yes to it being completely Say Her Name, and they asked, you know, who do you have in mind? How do we sort of craft this out? So from there, we took off running. We already have a lot of assets and things we use on social media, so we included some of those in the zine, but we had an opportunity to include some things we hadn't been able to put out or didn't have the capacity for, and even engage with some more of our, what we call our AAPF, our friends of AAPF and friends of Say Our Name, and have them contribute to the zine. So, yeah. So I suppose you would call it the program manager of the zine. Yeah. So so in that role, I was in charge of confirming our contributions to the zine, and I thought of you, Nyki, because we needed some more art, and I had a bunch of writers, because saying AAPF is just, we're very, you know, it's academia, it's intellectuals, lots of scholars, so we had the writers down packed, but we were, okay, we need more artists, we need more, we had some poets in it, and I still felt like we could use some art and photography, so that is why we reached out to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Chantel said, ask and you shall receive. Great work.
Yeah, you have not because you asked not, is what I've been told.
So true.
Like, I have asked for all kinds of things, Chantel, in the past. As someone who doesn't like to ask for things or ask for help, this has been interesting.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think the cool thing about the zine, and also if you guys want to check the zine, I have the link in my bio. I post a little bit about it. It's on Shermena's page, Time Change, AAPF, so you guys can still check out the zine. But it's cool to me that it's digital in like the multimedia component of it. It's it's a PDF you can print out or that's online. Like there's so many other elements, which is very cool.
It's their first digital zine.
Wow.
So, yeah. And honestly, I, like you all noticed at the beginning of this when I said I'm not a tech savvy person. So I didn't know how that worked. I'm just giving them stuff. And when I got the first sort of drafts with the clickables, I was like, this is brilliant. I think it's beautiful. It's beautifully done. It's beautiful work. Really proud of it.
Yeah, shout out to the Time for Change team because they were. So I know you have to run, so we can say this. If you guys have any quick questions, drop them in. I'll ask one more question. I guess There's so many things. But in the sort of reckoning or this period of reckoning that we're in the country, you know, there's like so many hashtags. There's Black Lives Matter, there's Say Her Name, and all these things. What are some ways you think that people can help be involved, not just with Say Her Name, but that may not be like, oh, I'm out here protesting? Like, what are some other ways that people can sort of make a difference and all that?
Yeah, you know, there's so many ways to be a part. There's not one way to sort of do this. I've heard a lot of friends, especially during these times, feeling almost guilt for not feeling involved enough and not being out on the street protesting. Oh, that's you.
Yes.
Well, everyone can't, you know, be on the street protesting. And I mean, there's so many skills, even just in our friend groups and on our line. I would say think of ways you can dedicate those skills to this. I think your contribution to the Chime for Change zine is a great example of that, right? That is a way for you to do activism in your way, what we call artivism, actually.
Ooh,
don't steal that unless you're gonna actually give APF credit. But yeah, I mean, in your way, we've had people reach out, our PR firm. You know, we've had digital media people reach out, like, you know, I have a couple of hours. Can I dedicate some time to you? Also, you can volunteer in a higher capacity. I think sometimes we think volunteering means only, you know, maybe working at the soup kitchen or giving clothing, which are all great. Please keep doing those things. But you can volunteer your actual, what you do for a living. If you're an attorney, you can volunteer maybe an hour pro bono legal services, perhaps to one of the families of the victims. They absolutely could use it. And, you know, we know of a lot of the victims who are a bit more well known, but there's so many victims who need legal help. Yeah, someone wrote, love it, artivism. So yes, you can continue. Right. If you're an artist, if you're a photographer, if you paint, if you draw, if you do digital media, a lot of these nonprofits who are out here working could use your help. There are orgs who need help as we're trying to figure out bail reform. So that's a good place for legal scholars. That's also a good place for someone who just may have some time to make some calls, may have some time to type some things up. There are people who need things transcribed. I know that's something sometimes we need APF. Because you can tape on the Zoom, but then it comes back and so someone has to take time and go through it. Right. So sometimes, you know, we may be meeting with families of victims and trying to get their stories, right? And you don't want to be in the meeting with your paper and pad, so you may need someone to later transcribe the recordings. I mean, I can go on and on. There's so many ways, Nikki, you can get out there and without actually getting out there, because it is COVID, and if you don't feel safe protesting, I don't think you should. I think for those that's their thing, they can go and do that. And for me, my thing is working for AAPF and working outside of APS, talking to my friends, telling them stories and trying to get them activated. And, you know, for you, it could be your art.
Yeah, I agree. Mackenzie just said, you are speaking truth to power, authentic activism for the win. And
thanks, Kenzie. Yeah, what's true to you, right? It's everything is not, you know, true to everyone, and we don't want you doing things that are not true to you, because that kind of energy is not, you know, we don't need that. We need you to do something that you really feel passionate about and put your love into.
Yeah, and I think being a part of the Chime for Change zine, it did help me to realize that, because it was, to your point, like even when I first was, you know, considered or being considered, I really had to take some time to think like, okay, what is the way that I can contribute to or speak about this cause in my voice? Like that is, you know, what comes authentic to me in creating, but also speaks to this cause. And I think it was like a personal exercise that was actually really good, because that is sort of what I was in this space of, like, how do I do this? How can I, you know, do something authentic to me? So that was great advice.
Yeah.
I just
Oh, it's Ty. Hey, Ty.
So I know you have to go. So
yeah, I have about 5 minutes, or I'm gonna get in trouble by this next event. the person in charge is like, "You need to be in here at 6:15." I said, "Can't do that, but I'll be in here at 7 p.m. sharp, so I'll be in there.
All right.
And then I'll change it to my Say Her Name shirt. So thank you, Nikki, for wearing your Say Her Name shirt. I figured I would go with Howard for HBCU week for you, but
Absolutely. Let's see. Maya said, yes, we must do what we can. Just do something. I agree. But yes, Mina, this has been great. I thank you. I mean, people are so in here. We might do a part 2, you know. But yes, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for your time and your testimony, your story. I think that was just so powerful. So I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming, you know.
I appreciate.
But then you asked me to speak about from my upbringing all the way to now.
Yeah.
I can't really leave that out. That's a big part of who I am. I try not to be sort of defined by it, but it's still a big part of who I am.
Yeah. Okay. Last thing, because you have 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So I feel like do you think that you're now working in your purpose in what you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I am. Yeah, I couldn't have dreamed a job that was actually more fitting for what it is I always thought I wanted to do. Because I like to organize, and I'm no longer the person I was when I was a kid, so I don't necessarily like to be in front of the spotlight, getting me to do this, obviously. I'm not crazy about speaking engagements and things like that. This job allows me to be sort of the strategic planning mastermind event planner that we all know I love to be. And in an area that really means a lot to me, and it allows me to feel like I'm really making a change. I love speaking to the mothers, even in those talks where, you know, the tears are, you know, I'll try to hide it, but it's tough. Mm-hmm. But I love that I could be here doing this work for them, and I love what I'm doing for the org. Because when I started, we were a bit smaller, so we've grown tremendously. I started, I think we had a staff of maybe 7 to 9, and now we have 24 people that I manage. And I love it. I love watching it sort of unfold. It's a lot of work, which is why I am tired, but it's a good tired because you feel like you're actually making a difference in people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Ty said, you are working in your purpose. Charity said, tailored for you. Yes.
Yeah, I think it totally is, right? Because it meshes the organizational skills with the grief work that I always wanted to do, with the social work, with the social justice activist side. And it has sort of event planning, as you know, I like to do as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, all of it. Well, yes, thank you one more time. I know you got to go. I'm not going to ask you any more questions. Thank everybody for joining, and have a great weekend, Mina. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And we'll talk soon.
Yes, we will. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.